Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into the Carnage episode, alright?
Let's get into Carnage, yes.
Yes. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is the one, the only, the Easty Axives.
Just letters this time. Now that is Carnage.
Yes, yes. Hi Steve, how's it going?
Not bad, you?
Pretty good. It's not like we've been talking for roughly 2 hours or anything.
Nah, not at all. We just kind of randomly pop in every now and then.
Yeah, we just pop on Skype and then start an episode. That's all that happens.
It's true, our relationship is entirely on mic because we can't stand each other off of it.
Oh, no, seriously. Like, the second we stop recording an episode, it's just like, fuck you, Steve. And it's just
Call is over. Yeah, when the moment hit record, the moment you stop the recording, my Skype program is designed to turn off because we cannot keep talking.
Yeah, fuck this guy.
Sure.
You have any idea how frustrating it is to talk to Steve? He hates everything.
Do you have any idea how frustrating it is to talk to Ian? He enjoys things. What the hell?
Steve, we're doing a character episode today, and today we're talking about Carnage from the Spider-Man universe, Cletus Cassidy. So this will be an interesting episode because I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan. I guess I just have that kind of general comic book thing. Like, I don't think anyone really hates Spider-Man. Like, I think it's almost... It is un-American to hate Spider-Man, in my opinion. But I don't feel like anyone hates Spider-Man, but certainly there are people that don't care for him that much. And I'm kind of like that. I'm like, I like Spider-Man a little bit, but he's just not my go-to character or anything like that. But I grew up in the 90s, as did you, and Venom and Carnage were a thing in the 90s, and they were connected to Spider-Man. They were like evil, mutated versions of Spider-Man, and it was just cool, right?
I mean, yeah. I remember watching Spider-Man the Animated Series as a kid. I remember owning issues of Maximum Carnage. Like, I have no basic... I mean, I've read a good chunk of Spider-Man despite not liking Spider-Man, and I've read most of the stuff we've done with Venom. And Venom's cool and all, but, like, conceptually, aesthetically, Carnage is just so much cooler.
It's like Venom's got the black and white, and that's cool, but red and black is such a powerful color combination, isn't it?
It really is. And the dude's already a serial killer. Like, it's so cool. It's so 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what really helps it, is like, he's already a villain. It's not like Eddie Brock where he's like, oh, he was a good person, and then he's just lost his way and went a little crazy. It's like, Cletus Cassidy is already fucking evil.
Yeah. No, he's nuts. He is unhinged. He is a mass murderer. And now he has all of these terrifying alien powers. There is actually a story I remember reading from the 90s where, like, it does this weird thing where, like, it cuts back and forth between Carnage acting in the real world fighting Spider-Man or some shit, and then cutting into his head where Cassidy's having a conversation with the symbiote, and the symbiote is actively afraid of him.
Oh my god, yes. See, that's perfect.
Yeah, like that, and that was always the image. Ever since I read that, that's always been the image in my head of what Carnage is.
Yeah, and like I have more to say probably about Venom as a character, but I want to save him. But like one thing that I always liked with the symbiote and how it's connected to both Spider-Man, Carnage, Venom, is this metaphor of an abusive relationship.
Yep.
Like, I've always said that, like, no one in any of these relationships is the innocent party, is the thing I really like. All of them want to change something about the other in a very fundamentally unhealthy way. And to do that side of an abusive relationship with Carnage is a really strong idea. To have the partner that is enabling the violent behavior that they fear from their partner is really fascinating. I keep bringing this up in these videos. Comic writers are really clever and come up with a lot of really cool things, but they're also kind of dumb.
Yep. Yep. And you were going to go there when you mentioned this.
Yeah. It's like, this is one of the things. Like, of course the symbiotes are abusive relationships, and they write them like abusive relationships, but they don't. But very few people seem to realize that's what they're writing, and so they don't, like, really capitalize on it, you know?
Well, because and Venom particularly goes back and forth. I think Carnage is unabashedly an abusive relationship metaphor, but like with Venom, there's a back and forth with it where on one hand it's an abusive relationship, but it's also like a drug addiction kind of thing. Mm-hmm. With the Flash Thompson Venom, it's very much a matter of like having Venom makes him feel good. And that's fine and that's interesting. But like I think that more interesting narrative of the symbiote is alive. The symbiote feeds off of you and you feed off of it is so much more interesting than just I need it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like the fact the symbiote has a personality. The symbiote, in every host it takes, brings a little bit of its previous host into the new one.
Yeah, and that goes really well with the idea of relationship. Echoing just a bit, Steve.
Sure.
I remember, having the talk with my dad, and he goes, all right, what you need to realize, I'm not saying don't go have sex, I'm not saying it's wrong to have sex, but you need to realize when you have sex with someone is in some way you are having sex with every person that person has had sex with. And like that's a thing that's connected to the relationship. The symbiote, in a way, kind of poisons you with its own past. And that's terrifying and also really, really fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, it's particularly with Carnage, because like Carnage, if I remember right, it's been a long time since I've like read really any of this. But like Carnage's symbiote, I think initially comes off as like an offshoot of Venom's.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Like
it's not its own separate entity. It's just like an offshoot of Venom that went to Cletus Cassidy. So like there's a really interesting metaphor in that of like Peter and Venom find each other.
And
Peter rejects Venom, and Venom gets pissed, so he finds someone else to help him beat the shit out of Peter. But in their fighting with each other, they create another toxic relationship, which is Carnage.
Yeah, so Carnage is kind of like the bastard child of Spider-Man and Venom, right?
Yeah, and then like at the same time, it's this notion of like these types of relationships don't only hurt the people in them; they hurt the people around them and anyone else that sees it. Mm-hmm. It's not good per se, but there's a miniseries where like Carnage is just in some like country town, and it's like a haunted house kind of thing where he's just killing everyone in the town. And there's a really interesting metaphor inserted there where like the kinds of pressures we put on each other to fit in specific social dynamics end up killing us. And it's really cool to see with Carnage, who's entirely a consequence of an abusive relationship or a toxic relationship.
Yeah, I really like that about him. He is a character who is more fascinating than I feel anyone gives him credit for when writing him.
Yeah, I agree. Particularly because there's very little good Spider-Man Carnage stuff, really. Like, Maximum Carnage is 90s as fuck, which also means it's really bad. Web of Carnage is really bad.
Well, like, that's the problem is they just want to write him like some badass, and like, what you need to do when writing like a serial killer thing is strike that balance between something that a 13-year-old would think of as metal as fuck and something that is truly horrifying and interesting in its implications. Like,
Yeah.
I do agree that Carnage has a cool factor to him. We talked about the black and red. Black and red, fuck Nazis for stealing that color combination, because it's awesome.
It really is. Batman Beyond costume is the best Batman costume.
I wonder if Batwoman and Terry McGinnis ever meet, if they're gonna, like, bicker with each other about who stole from who.
Oh my god, I want to see that.
Yeah.
It works even better, because Batwoman's a redhead. It's great.
Yeah, totally. No, but, like, the black and red combination, the like, you know, the symbiote costume obviously wasn't designed as a symbiote costume initially. Like, the notion of turning it into a villain later obviously came much later. You know, even when they decided to get rid of it, like, that was a decision made later. They just wanted to give the notion of, oh, it's a new costume that's like a living being now, because symbiotes were getting popular, and then they later decided to turn into a villain and stuff. So Venom was just a beefed up, meaner looking version of Black Suit Spidey. Carnage, however, was designed from the beginning as a villain, and you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Carnage, and this is, at least from what I've read, kind of annoying that, like, Carnage and Peter don't have, like, any sort of, like, specific dynamic for each other. Because if you're going to design Carnage from the ground up as a villain, you'd think one of the first questions you'd want to ask is, okay, what is it about him and Spider-Man that makes him interesting to fight? And it just seems, because Carnage is very much just sort of random destruction, and that would be interesting and fine if then Spider-Man had his own sort of interpretation of how he deals with Carnage, and he doesn't.
Yeah. And then there's, like, also the like, unique things about Carnage. Like, he can kind of do the Green Lantern thing and turn his body into weapons.
Him running around with tentacles and axes for hand is the coolest fucking thing.
It totally is. And, like, it just feels like you should be able to do interesting stuff with that. And they never quite make it, you know?
It's everything they wanted to say about Spider-Man dealing with a symbiote, they will automatically throw to Venom. And anything they want to say about Carnage seems as if the stories are designed for Carnage to weirdly want to prove his own worth. Which seems like the wrong way to handle this. We're like, Carnage USA, like the mini I was talking about, like the small town, like it's entirely about, like, look, see, Carnage can be cool and terrifying. It's like a Stephen King novel inside the Marvel Universe. Maximum Carnage is basically, we need to, like, boister up how dangerous the symbiotes and stuff are. Web of Carnage is the same way. Spider Carnage is the same way. Like, it seems like Carnage is a cool idea. No one wanted the cool idea or needed it, so we just keep throwing it around as like, no, it's a cool idea. It's a cool idea. We can do stuff with it. It's a cool idea. And they just never do anything with it. Fucking Carnage got the powers of the Silver Surfer at one point, and that was pointless. But, like, they wanted to make him more badass.
I mean, that's the problem, is they just keep trying to make him more badass, but they don't want to do character stuff with him.
Yeah.
Like, Maximum Carnage is kind of the perfect epitome of that, where it's like, yeah, that's a really cool title, but literally that book is Maximum Carnage, destruction, chaos, all that stuff. It doesn't really do anything for Carnage on a super deep character level.
It's almost nothing but a cool title. It has, because it's like, what, like 12, 13 parts long. It's like 2 issues of every Spider-Man ongoing at that point. It's like this massive event. And the fact that Carnage is the bad guy means almost nothing in relation to that. They just wanted to make an event.
Yep. And that's comic books now. That is the beginning of the modern comic book event. Unfortunately.
Well, and I mean, I know that, like, you don't like Nightfall as much as I do, but, like, and so if you just compare, like, Nightfall to Maximum Carnage, Bane was designed for an event. The event as a story functions very much off of who Bane is, even if he drops off towards the end of it, because Bane's the kind of catalyst for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maximum Carnage doesn't work that way. Maximum Carnage is an event designed with Carnage in mind, but it's a matter of getting an event out first and then sprinkling Carnage throughout it. It's not inherent to who Carnage is.
Yeah, I could understand that as being the problem with it. It's just unfortunate because it seems like you could do things with Carnage that you can't do with Venom.
Absolutely.
And like from the Venom's an abusive relationship from like I did that video forever ago. I said the symbiote is a bad girlfriend. And I will stick by that. The symbiote is an awful girlfriend who just always wants to talk to you about her ex. That's a problematic relationship. Yeah, Carnage should be the child born out of that toxic relationship. And you could do unique and interesting things. And like this idea that Carnage doesn't validate himself, you can do that. He can be the child reaching out for attention. And it's just unfortunate that we seem to be doing that, but not in a self-aware way at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's ironic. It's very much on that meta level of like, we have the parents that love Spider-Man, we have the parents that love Venom, and Carnage is kind of just thrown in the middle, and it wants to be in that. It wants to be part of that dynamic, but it never quite is. Hell, I don't remember, someone in the comments might know, but like, times when Carnage and Venom team up against Spider-Man seem very sporadic. I know what happened in the animated series, but that's not a particularly good show, so...
Well, Venom doesn't like...
He's not a serial killer?
Yeah, Eddie Brock's got his whole, at least from the stuff I've read, Eddie Brock's got his whole moral code thing, I want to be the Punisher thing.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't like Carnage. And so they rarely, if ever, work together. More often than not, it's Spider-Man and Venom teaming up against Carnage, from what I understand.
And you'd want to do something kind of to go with what you were saying earlier, where like, okay, so maybe you write a story where Carnage has a personal vendetta against Spider-Man because Carnage's quote-unquote father was rejected by Spider-Man, so that vendetta of the father get translated into him. Or you could do the other thing of, you're pissed at Venom. Carnage talking to Venom says, you're pissed at Spider-Man for ditching you, but you ditched me, which means I hate you just as much as you hate Spider-Man. Like, you could do things here where Carnage's personality is reflective of both Spider-Man's relationship to Venom and Venom's relationship to Spider-Man, and why both of those things breed Carnage. We just never do it.
And that's unfortunate, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And it's silly. The name is so just over the top in 90s, but you could really make the name work with that kind of relationship, right?
I mean, especially if you're talking about the whole notion of toxicity, where like Venom, Carnage, symbiote, the words are there.
Mm-hmm. You could really layer that name and make it seem more brilliant than it is.
Just give it to Tom King. He seems to know exactly how to make names brilliant.
Tom King is not the Jesus of comic books, Steve. He's not going to save every single character.
It's true, he's not the Jesus of comic books. He's just the God of comic books. But,
Grant Morrison is just sitting there pining after his picture of Steve Baxter. He's like, I used to be his favorite comic book writer. Then some new young American strapping lad came around, and now I've been forgotten. And like a single tear starts to fall from Grant Morrison's face.
A single Scottish tear. Which means it's about 20% alcohol.
Yeah. Love me, Steve Baxter! You're gonna wake up to like fucking bagpipe music playing, and you're gonna like open your window, and Grant Morrison's gonna be on your front lawn holding a like boombox over his head. And it's like playing a bagpipe rendition of that version of that song. Oh, man. Okay, anyway.
But to Carnage, just out of curiosity, how do you feel about this weird recent pairing of Carnage and Deadpool?
I don't get it.
I don't either.
I don't
was
get why
curious.
Deadpool has to keep getting involved in Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah, I don't entirely get that. I know that there's the running gag that Deadpool had in his own book of like, oh, he looks like Spider-Man.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's like, I don't know if you, like, I didn't read this, I just heard about it. They retconned the symbiote's origin, because in the original Secret Wars, Spider-Man gets the suit from, like, that weird machine thing or whatever.
Right.
They retconned the symbiote's origin that the way it got into that machine is Deadpool time traveled, got the symbiote on him, made it crazy, and then after a big adventure or whatever, put it in that machine to get rid of it before Spider-Man got rid of it. Like,
that's so bad.
I know, it's stupid. It's stupid, awful comic book writing.
See, and this is who to blame for this. This is Daniel Way's fault, and this is Secret Invasion's fault. Because Secret Invasion's a shitty story, but the only thing that salvaged it was when you read the Daniel Way Deadpool, and there's a moment in it where you find out that it's actually Deadpool's fault that the Skrulls accidentally invaded Earth. And that's hilarious. But you can't just insert Deadpool into every pinnacle moment of comics and think it's still funny.
No, it only works once, right?
Exactly. And it only works for things like Secret Invasion, which no one gives a shit about.
Yeah. No, so like that was just foolish. And so like I don't like that we keep giving Spider-Man's characters to other people. Like that's annoying to me. But at the same time, what I'm about to say completely contradicts that. Because I remember talking to Bill about this at one point where we were hoping that an MCU Spider-Man meant that like Marvel could start using some of the characters. And Bill threw out a really cool idea, which is to introduce Cletus Cassidy and Daredevil.
Oh, shoot.
Right?
That would be so cool.
Wouldn't it, though? But, like, right now, with what the fuck ever is going on with the Venom movie, I doubt that's going to happen.
It's supposed to start filming next month, so I don't know.
Yeah, but, like, I just mean between whether or not it's even in the MCU at this point.
Oh, yeah. That whole confusing mess.
No one fucking knows. I think what it's going to come down to is, if it's successful, it's in the MCU. If it's not... We know Marvel does not want it in their continuity. But Sony's like, this is the only way we're going to sell tickets for it. Yeah, but that's the thing, is like Marvel's saying, no, it's not in our continuity, but if it gets good reviews, if it sells well, it's in their continuity.
This could also segue eventually to a video maybe we could do about how the MCU should maybe stop because there's too much now, and that's a problem.
That's cute, Steve.
There's too much fucking Runaways, Inhumans, all of these Netflix shows. There's too much. Stop it.
Yeah, it's not gonna.
630 days from now, Avengers 4 will be in theaters. It's already filming.
Wow. Anyway, back to Carnage, though.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, I don't know. I like the idea of introducing him in other things as far as media goes. Weird idea, but just with the way his character is designed, the way his powers work. If we ever got an anime Spider-Man movie or series, Carnage would be a great fucking villain for that. Just visually speaking.
I could see that. The Marvel anime that they did release, there was Wolverine, Iron Man, Blade, and X-Men. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man didn't get thrown into that, but I feel like Spider-Man just as a character works better for anime since it's so much more about the fluidity of his movement.
Mm-hmm. He's got the whole acrobatic thing, and you know, Cletus Cassidy's Carnage, you know, he's literally fluid at times.
Well, did you ever watch Spider-Man Unlimited?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my god, yes, forever ago.
Yeah, because Spider-Man is fighting Venom and Carnage in the first episode of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that really weird, tentacly, almost mostly liquid design. And then they kind of like come back towards the end. I don't remember exactly what happens. It may have literally been 15 years since I've seen that show. But there's something about like the way they used Carnage in that was really anime-esque, and it just didn't go anywhere well.
Yeah, I remember my mom watched the first episode of that with me and was like, oh god, they're doing anime with Spider-Man. This is wrong.
Yeah.
She hates anime. It's kind of funny.
The only thing about that show that I thought was legitimately good was Spider-Man's costume, and then I realized that was $20.99.
Pretty much the winged, the web cape's kind of cool.
I do love the web cape.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think that, Carnage has a cool design that would lend itself well to anime with all the tentacles and stuff. If nothing else, it would make a great Spider-Man hentai.
Probably. It's a thing where like both Venom and Carnage's designers are very economical in the sense that like it's just a mass of two colors smashed together.
Mm-hmm, with teeth.
But there's so much you can do with that where like it's almost impossible to be a bad Carnage artist.
Yeah, because like anything weird you're doing is just inherently interesting, right?
Yeah, because like it doesn't even matter if he's anatomically correct in any way because it's Carnage.
Yeah. Like, I love the fact that, like, Venom looks like the buff Spider-Man, and then Carnage just looks like the meth addict Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And it just, he looks sickly thin, and just creepy as balls.
Yeah.
That's always really fascinating. One thing I remember talking about, too, is... So, like, I have a whole fucking pitch and a half for how to do Venom in a Spider-Man movie that no one's ever going to listen to.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But, like, originally in the comics, the way that Eddie Brock got fired from his job was he was reporting on this serial killer and, like, releasing fake interviews and stuff, and he got busted for it by Spider-Man. The thing I would like to do is to have Peter Parker be the one that busts him on it, similar to the Raimi movie where he, like, discredits Brock. Though, in this day and age, that wouldn't matter because apparently no one cares about facts in journalism. Zing!
No video.
Yeah.
It was returned.
Yeah. But anyway, so, like, the way I'd like the character interactions to work is have Peter Parker be the one that busts him for that, for whatever reason, job at the Daily Bugle, whatever. But also, I would change it from being random serial killer to having the serial killer that he was pretending to interview be Cletus Cassidy.
Ah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, just to really, like, I mean, it's comic book level contrived, but guess what? We're talking about comic book characters, so fuck it. I just think it'd be really interesting to intertwine those three in that way of both. They have the cape, or let's say mask instead. They have the mask dynamic of rivalry, but then they have the underlying personal dynamic of rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, I could really see that, specifically in that, like, more toxic relationship framework of, like, all of them are intertwined with each other in very specific negative ways that enable each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could totally see that working. How do you feel about... Do you feel like... Because the Carnage symbiote is a symbiote, and therefore it can take on and has taken on different hosts. Is Carnage and Cletus Cassidy's relationship more important than, say, something like Eddie Brock and Venom? Because I feel like... Because the Venom symbiote almost... It seems very clear in the stuff I've read with Venom where, like, the person that's wearing the suit's personality shines through, and then Venom is just written as Venom. So, like, Flash Thompson is Flash Thompson, but he talks to Venom. Eddie Brock is Eddie Brock, but he talks to Venom. With Carnage, I have a really hard time separating Cletus Cassidy from the maniacal tendencies of Carnage. And specifically what I mentioned earlier with that comic where, like, the Carnage symbiote was afraid of Cletus Cassidy. It just makes me think no one else could actually wear it.
And I'm trying to think, like, you know, has anyone else worn it for, like, a long term other than just, like, a one moment or two for an issue?
I don't know about a long term.
Like, there have been multiple people in the Venom symbiote now. I don't think that anyone's done it with Carnage for more than a couple issues.
I know, let's see. I know there's like one or two characters that have worn the Carnage symbiote and like they became the new Carnage, but like they either got killed off or went back to Cletus Cassidy somehow. There was the whole Spider Carnage Ben Reilly thing, but that's just for the sake of the story, not really a new host designed for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we have a lot of examples of Carnage.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like... I'm just looking through character evolution. I'm looking through his Comic Vine article, trying to see if there's, like, anybody else that's worn it. Once thought dead by the hands of Sentry is being held in a container. Don't care. Like, I'm sure there've been moments that other people wore it, but, you know.
Okay, this is interesting. According to a summary of Cletus Cassidy's wiki, he has the Carnage symbiote, but that symbiote, which is a spawn of Venom, eventually gets reabsorbed back into Venom, and then he gets a different symbiote, but is still Carnage.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that fits, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then Carnage has his own kid. I didn't know about this. He's got a kid named Toxin.
Yeah, there's so many fucking symbiotes for a while. There were like 15 symbiotes running around in the Marvel Universe back in the late 90s.
The only big ones that I've ever like really read of are Venom, Carnage, and Anti-Venom.
Yeah, there's
everything
Anti-Venom,
else
Toxin. Like, I'm sure you can find a list of all the... People went symbiote crazy, and then McFarlane struck out on his own to go do Spawn, and what's the Spawn costume? It's a fucking symbiote.
It's true. It's true. And in Maximum Carnage, he's got, like, symbiote-wielding friends and shit, but, like, I never remembered any of their names.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That shit went fucking nuts in the 90s. It's like one cool character concept, and suddenly everything was a symbiotic relationship. And I'm like, guys, it's a cool word. We get it.
Sam Wilson Cap had a really cool symbiote story, if you remember.
No.
I think it was in the original Remender run, but it was like a spin-off of the whole Superior Carnage thing.
Okay, interesting.
But it was a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about favorite design of Carnage. And since I haven't read a ton of him, I'm going to talk about a really cool painting that Steven Sejic, who is an artist that I really like on DeviantArt, did of Carnage. And it looks really cool. And he did a companion piece of Venom with them roaring at each other.
That's kind of badass.
Yeah, and I really like that. So that's my favorite Carnage design I've seen. So let me just see if I can give you guys something to Google here. Carnage... man, I can never remember how to spell this guy's name. He's from frickin' Croatia. And so, yeah, it's if you look up Carnage, Sejic, you'll find his work. It's really, really fucking cool. I love that painting. How about you, Steve? Any particularly favorite Carnage designs?
The one that usually comes to mind for me is the Mark Bagley design for Carnage, where like he's got the same sort of like basic visual that all the Carnages do, but like his fingers are more elongated and claw-like than they usually are. It's like a really messy looking design, but like particularly because Bagley's such a clean artist, it's just cool to see him do something that looks as messy as that. And also because I think because Venom has got that, like, terrifying smile thing, and then later with the whole long-ass tongue thing, Carnage doesn't really have, like, that same sort of distinctive face. So just the busyness and, like, the tentacly design is a cool enough contrast where like you don't need him to have a sadistic smile to be scary.
Definitely. It's a really imposing character design. It's interesting because you can just do a lot of weird shit with it, which is
And then
nice.
just like inherently it's cool that like Venom's the big bulky Spider-Man like you pointed out. Carnage is physically literally smaller than him. He is just a small portion of him, and yet he's stronger and more terrifying.
Definitely. Okay. Let's go ahead and do recommended stories, which should be really weird since neither of us read much stuff with Carnage.
Yeah, and the stuff I've read I don't necessarily like that much.
I enjoy Vengeance of Venom to a degree. I think Vengeance of Venom was a pretty decent story arc that introduces Carnage, and I like Carnage as a consequence of, dealing with Venom, and Spider-Man, refusing to just end his problems and then that kind of creating more. So I really like that. As the origin of Carnage through their little lovers quarrel. I like that he's the bastard child of Venom and Spider-Man.
That is pretty badass, yeah.
Yeah. Anything for you?
So, I don't like this event as a whole, but I like specific issues of it. So there was a thing in the late 2000s, early 10s, called Minimum Carnage, which it's a crossover of all the Spider-Man books, just like Maximum Carnage was, but like there are specifically issues of it that are in the Agent Venom book. And at this point, Colin Bunn was writing it, and I didn't love what he was doing. But like he had more of like a demonic cult sort of style, and throwing Carnage into that sort of more mystical side was kind of fun and interesting. And I thought Colin Bunn had a really good voice for Carnage, particularly when Carnage is fighting Agent Venom, and Agent Venom on just a physical level is so much weaker than normal. Minimum Carnage is another one of those, like, it's kind of like Maximum Carnage, where, like, it's spread across all the Spider-Man books at the time, and it's not particularly great, but it crosses over with the Agent Venom book, which at that point was being written by Cullen Bunn, and he's got more of, like, a occult demon sort of thing going, so to see Carnage in that context is cool, but then also because Flash Thompson as Agent Venom is so much weaker than regular Venom would be because he's being actively inhibited, because, you don't want Carnage to go on a murder spree, or Venom to go on a murder spree. It's cool to see, like, a really depowered Venom fight, like, a terrifying demonic level Carnage. But then also, and this isn't a good story either, but Carnage USA is really fun to read, if only because it's Carnage as a small-town Stephen King monster, and that's just a really cool aesthetic.
Yeah, that sounds neat. I'm going to have to pick that one up if it's been collected.
I think it has. That story is probably at least 5 years old at this point. But like, it's just like small town, southern, well, not southern, like more like Midwestern, sort of like conservative, really religious people who all know each other, huddled together, hiding from the monster in the closet kind of thing. It's a cool idea.
Is that the one with the image of Carnage and the Uncle Sam get up?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's that, and there's also, like, one of the covers for it is, like, Carnage, but the colors make him look more like an American flag.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so there's stuff there about, like, critiquing American culture. It's not a good story, but it can be rewritten to be a good one.
It's one of those things with comic books where, like, it's really brilliant to start out with, but just not on the page itself, but it just needs someone who actually gives a damn to come there and breathe life into it. Like, you ever watch one of those superhero movies where it's like, it's loosely based off of this story, and then you're like, they took, like, seriously 2 things from that story and made such a better movie out of it. Always cracks me up when comic book movies do that, and you got fans sitting there bitching, oh, why isn't it like the source material?
This is one of those cases where, like, what I'm saying sounds better than what it actually is.
Probably. I have no doubt in my mind that's true. I'm probably going to seek it out to see if I can find it anyway.
Yeah, it might be a fun review. It's like 4 or 5 issues. It's short. It's just a mini.
Gotcha. Okay, Steve, who are we going to talk about next time?
Okay, next time, let's talk about... fuck it, let's talk about Mr. Miracle.
All right, let's do that. Okay, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the Exile.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.